He's got it! England have won the World Cup by the barest of margins!
Stokes flashes it away, through the covers for 4, and England have won the match.
Hello, that's a very appropriate bit of commentary, isn't it, for tonight's guest? England winning the World Cup, of course, by the barest of margins. How many times have you heard that in this club? Welcome, everybody, to the world's best cricket club, as usual, our modestly titled club. And we have tonight a very special guest, actually, as I know you know, someone who really did help England win the World Cup. He had a massive influence on the way England played and, of course, helping England win the Ashes as well. Must be a strange experience, an Australian helping England win the Ashes. But anyway, welcome very much to Trevor Bayliss. Welcome, Trev, to our world's best cricket club with that.
Yeah, thanks, Simon.
Commentary, celebrating a great moment, or two great moments actually, in your coaching life, the World Cup, and also, of course, that Stokes moment as well. I mean, 2019, does it feel like a distant memory now?
Well, I'm back over here in London now for the 100, but it's 3 years ago since I left. It just feels like 6 months ago.
Does it? That's good. Good to hear, actually. So it all kind of comes back every time. I suppose when you come back to England, in a way, having been away for a couple of years, I suppose actually it all comes sort of flooding back.
Oh, yeah, look, I find myself, even when I'm at home, thinking about the World Cup and. But not just the World Cup, but a lot of the friends I made over here. And that's one of the good things about being back over here, coaching this 100. It's been the opportunity, the chance to actually, meet up and chat with, some of the players, but, a lot of the people that I was associated with over here, behind the scenes, just getting to see them again. As, that's one of the bonuses of being back over here.
Yeah, and of course reunited with Owen Morgan at the London Spirit. So how has your relationship kind of evolved?
Look, I think we're both fairly easygoing type blokes. We try to keep things very simple, and it's just been one of those partnerships that has been very easy. As I said, we both, I think, got a similar philosophy on the game. Want to play a good, positive, aggressive game of cricket, but we want to keep it simple. Not overcomplicate it, and give the players confidence, I suppose, that they can go out and play their own natural games. And I mean that's why they've been selected. So to go out and be themselves, not try to be something that they're not.
Mm. And you're doing all right because you're all second. I know you were top for a while, but certainly, I mean, it's interesting. You have a transformative effect on cricketers you work with. You've obviously achieved a huge amount with Sri Lanka when you coached them. You achieved a lot in the IPL when you coached teams there, and come to England, transformed England's one-day side. Test match team stayed fairly steady. And now you've London Spirit, who were the sort of wooden spoonists last year, absolutely terrible. Now they're punching at the top of the table as well. So, I mean, I know you're a modest man who doesn't claim any credit, but I mean, what do you think you have done? What have you done for the London Spirit? How have you managed to make them play so well?
Look, I think my approach as a coach at the highest levels with all the teams that I've been with, it's pretty much about trying to play with a smile on your face. These guys are at the top level are experienced players. They've got a high skill level, and they're underneath enough pressure as it is. In front of the media and in front of big crowds. And I think it's just about, as I said, playing the game for the reasons you took it up in the first place, and that's because you love playing the game, and trying to instill that in the players, and throwing a few bad dad jokes every now and then, and they take the mickey out of you and you play with a smile on the face, and that seems to take some pressure off them when they go out to perform in the middle. And if someone's trying to play their role and it's not quite coming off, that we don't actually drop them necessarily straight away. That we send a message not just to them but the rest of the team that it's okay to fail as long as you learn from it.
We've got a lovely story. You kindly gave up your time in Sydney about a year ago or so in an interview we did for the World Cup documentary that we've made, and I know all our club members have heard a lot about this doc. And you told a lovely story in it, actually, which I'm not going to play because I'm going to play another little bit. But you told a lovely story about Jason Roy, and one of the first times you met him, he came into the changing rooms with J. Roy written on his shoes. Tell us what happened.
Well, it was I think it was a warm up down in Southampton actually, and he came out with his shoes embroidered with J. Roy on the back. So just to have a bit of fun with him, I'm not necessarily in favour of people big noting themselves, I suppose, but he came out, so I just took the opportunity. I put a bit of tape on the back of my shoes and wrote TB on it and said, you're not the only one that can have your name on the shoes, which got a bit of a laugh out of him and the players as well. So just sort of breaks the ice, and as I said, try to get the boys to play with a smile on their face.
Actually, I think it's things like that are really important, aren't they? Because firstly, it just stops people from, I think it was your phrase actually, getting too big for their boots. But also it does bring a bit of humour in, and it diffuses possible, I don't know, jealousy or, kind of players sort of looking down on each other or looking up on each other. It diffuses that a bit.
Yeah, I think so. And look, I can't really explain exactly what it is or the way I go about things, but that approach is just me. As I said before, I want the players to go out and be themselves, and it was one of the promises I made to myself when I first got the New South Wales head coach's role in 2004, that I'd had a bit of success at underage levels as a coach. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't change. I'd approach things in the same manner, and I've tried to do that right through, first class cricket, franchise cricket, and 2 international teams that I've done. Look, hopefully that's had a small part to do in some of the success I've been involved with, or the teams have achieved that I've coached. But as I said, the main thing is you do need some good players in your teams to have that success.
And I suppose that brings us on neatly to Ben Stokes, who clearly does have some mongrel. I guess the Aussies would say so. You had a close relationship with him. You had a lot of influence on him. I know you actually talked him into training a bit less hard at one point, and he doesn't listen to too many people, but he obviously listened to you, because that period, I don't know, 2017, 2018, 2019, where he really started to produce some great performances. There must have been an element of influence from you that you stopped him from just going berserk in training all the time. Yeah,
look, he was one of those guys that gave absolutely 100% at practice. If we were at practice for 2 hours, he'd train non-stop for 2 hours. If we were at practice for 3 hours, he would train non-stop for 3 hours, and not just going through the motions. He was going hard all the time. Bowl at full pace, bat at full pace, do extra batting, go out and do extra fielding and do it like a madman. Then come back out. He might throw balls to some of the other batters. If someone wanted some spinners bowled to them, he'd bowl spinners. He just did not sit down for like 3 hours of practice. For a guy that was in the 3 teams at that stage, batted and bowled, was the number 1 fielder. You could see that eventually it was going to take a bit of a toll. So we just tried to get him to practice a little smarter, I suppose, and get out of practice what he needed for the next game, and not to overdo it, save all his energy for the match.
and obviously it worked. Did you see him at the time as a potential captain?
I've told this story once or twice. I think it was when we were in Bangladesh, and Cookie was still the captain, and obviously Joe Root was the heir apparent to to take over that captaincy. And I know the written journalist asked me after the game one day about was there anyone else other than Joe Root that could be captain of England, and I suggested Ben Stokes, to which they all laughed. I said, no, I'm serious. And they, that shut him up a little bit, because to me, he was a leader of men. He was one of those guys that a lot of the other guys in the team were attracted to. They've, if he was speaking, or if he was having a beer, or there was always guys around him that the guys were just attracted to him. And when he spoke in a team meeting, or after a game, everyone listened. And if something had to be like if someone disagreed with me, for example, which I'm not afraid of, he would be the one that would speak up. Even to Straussy. I know Straussy, when we went to India for the 2016 T20 World Cup, Straussy came over to have a meeting, and he wanted to have a meeting before one of the games. And Stokesy went to Paul Fabres and said he didn't think it was the right time to have a meeting, which should be after the match. So they both came to my room, which I agreed with. So we went and saw Straussy, and Stokesy told him what he thought. So he changed things around. He was a bit of a spokesperson for the rest of the team.
Tell us the story about your first meeting with Stokes, a proper sort of encounter on the golf course in Spain, I think, wasn't it?
That's right. I arrived here in London, and I think about 2 days later we flew out to Spain for a 3-day cricket camp, if you like. We didn't do much cricket. It was we did a little bit of fielding and catching, but it was pretty much a sort of 3 days for them to get to know me and me to get to know them. And first or second day there was a game of golf on, and I'd only met the guys half an hour before, for example, and I was teeing off on a par 3 and hooked it into the bushes, and Stokes and Mark Wood were coming up the par 4 just near where we're hitting off, and he sledged me for hitting it into the trees. I just thought to myself, here's a bloke, he's not afraid to actually speak up. He's getting stuck into the new coach, and he doesn't really know me. So that just sort of made me feel like, well, here's a bloke that he's not afraid to speak his mind, and not afraid to speak up.
And I guess you've observed what England have done under his leadership since. So I guess probably it doesn't surprise you that they've sort of taken the bull by the horns and shaken it and given it a really good going over. Yeah,
look, it's been exciting. It's been exciting to watch. Look, it's not going to work every single time, but it's how do they react to that? I think possibly similar to what we did in the 1 day setup was early on we fell over a few times trying to make some big scores, but what we said to the guys was like, let's test the ceiling and see how good, we'll see how high we can go. We're going to fall over a few times, but we will learn from it, and things may change a little bit as you go, but let's test the ceiling. If we don't test the ceiling and see what we can do, well, we don't know how good we can be. So that was our approach, or one of our approaches in the 1 day game. And I think maybe to a certain degree that's I don't know. I haven't spoken to them since I've been here, or but that may be one of the philosophies with Stokesy and Baz McCullum for the test team.
So really, I mean, in a way, I've thought this all along, actually. Baz ball is really Trev ball. In the sense that you and Morgan and obviously a couple of senior players brought in that new kind of liberated way of playing, and no holds barred, no blame, just make good decisions but be positive all the time.
Yeah, I think it's I found myself trying to explain what being positive and aggressive was for 3 or 4 years. I did come in and say, if I changed anything, if I did change anything, or if I went back and I had to change something, it would be explain that a little better at the very beginning. I came in and said, look, I think the question was, how do you want the team to play? And I said, well, good, positive, aggressive cricket. What I was trying to then explain for the next 3 or 4 years was being positive and aggressive is not hitting 4s and 6s or trying to hit 4s and 6s every ball. It's having a positive mindset. Because if you've got a positive mindset, the runs do come. The longer you bat, the more runs you're able to score, the easier it is to score. Yes, by all means, you've got to do some hard yards early sometimes. Other times you can get away, just depending on what the bowlers serve up. But it's about having a positive mind. If you've got a positive mind and you are looking to score and not just survive, for example, you make good decisions. You defend well, you leave well. You're looking for the quick single. And when the bad ball comes away, you're in that positive frame of mind. Before you know it, it's racing away to the fence.
Is it also a little bit about if a player is out playing positively, to not castigate them or question it, maybe to analyze it later, but to encourage that positivity, so that if players feel afraid or nervous, that they can kind of try and express themselves. And I'm not really articulate, but it's a very difficult thing to articulate this, isn't it?
I think the perfect example of that is Jason Roy in the one-day team. Before I actually arrived in London, I'd been appointed, and they had a series against New Zealand where Jason debuted, I think. And just being on the phone to Morgs and Paul Farbrace, what the changes we wanted to make to the team, or the changes Morgs wanted to make to the team, was to get those positive players in, and Jason was one of those players that we had identified at the top of the order, and we gave him a certain role to get us off to a quick start. But we also said to him, look, if it doesn't work, we're not going to drop you for playing your role, and to give him that confidence. So he had that. I think he missed out in most of those games.
Oh no, the first game, he was out first ball.
Yeah,
against New Zealand at Edgbaston. I remember it. 2015, May, June. He got a big drive at the first ball of the game, I think from Trent Boult, and sliced it to backward point. He was out, naught. Yeah. But he never looked back, really, did he?
That's right. I think, hopefully giving him the confidence that, I've been given a job to do, and I'm going to go out and try and do that. And if it doesn't work out, playing that style of game, it has got its risks if you don't execute properly. So we couldn't sort of tell him, well, that was his job, and then after 1 or 2 failures, get rid of him. We had confidence in him that he was the right guy for the job, and hopefully he felt that confidence. And I'd like to think he did feel it, because he obviously played a big role in winning that World Cup 4 years later.
Just while we're on that, Morgan, actually quite a lot of the film is sort of focusing on Morgan and his captaincy and so on. What does he do for you that is special? What is it about his captaincy that makes him special? And you're working with him now again, of course.
Well, I think he's very knowledgeable on the game, but he's got huge respect from the players. He's a deep thinker of the game. He doesn't make rash decisions. So I see my role as my thoughts on coaching is that the captain is the boss, and again, that's probably a little bit old school, but the coach, from my point of view, is there to try and give options to the captain. He's the one out on the field that's got to make those decisions on the run. He's the one that's got to be comfortable with the players that he's got, on his team. So he might ask, "What do you think?" We can give maybe 2-3 different options. In the end, it's the players or the captains. He's the one that's got to make that decision. From a coach's point of view, well, we've had our chance to play this game. Now it's up to the young guys to take that over and I suppose have the destiny of their own performances in their own hands. And but Morgs, when you can give him 2 or 3 or 4 options, as I said, he doesn't make a rash decision. He'll think about each of those decisions, and most of the time he picks the right way to go.
You said you like the captain to take the front seat and all that and direct the traffic, but you did have one crucial intervention in that World Cup, in that semi-final, when England beat Australia pretty comfortably, and they were all sort of jumping and dancing around knowing they were in the final, and you just paused a bit, didn't you, there, and just took them aside, and what did you say?
Well, they were enjoying a beer in the dressing room after the game, which I'm not against. But it was one of those situations where is this going to go on too long, or are they a bit over the top here? They've had a good win, so I just said, pulled them all in and just said, I'm going to put my Australian hat on here and just let you know from an Australian point of view why you blokes haven't won the World Cup yet. And they all sort of listen, and it's because you've just won the semi-final. It's like you think you've won the competition. You've only won the semi-final. You haven't won anything yet. Enjoy the win. You deserve to have a beer tonight. Don't go overboard because you haven't won anything yet. You've played well today, so feel good about that. Let's go. We had a week, I think, before the final, so you can enjoy a beer or more than one beer after the final when you win.
Must have been a funny experience for you, that, actually, because you're beating England, beating Australia, and and you're telling England not to overreact too much, not to celebrate too much, because still the hard yards to come, kind of thing. Must have been a weird scenario for you. But I suppose, I guess you're going to say that having coached in Sri Lanka, having coached in India, obviously having coached in England, nationality almost becomes irrelevant, does it?
Oh, definitely. Once you sign a contract and Sri Lanka or England are the team you're coaching, well, I want them to win every single game if possible. You've got to be a bit philosophical about it. Obviously, no one's going to win every game, but you want the team that you're coaching to be successful. Look, I've been asked the question a few times. What was it like coaching against Australia, where you're from? But to me, I likened it to growing up as a kid. We played a lot of backyard cricket in Australia during the summer, during the school holidays. Against your brothers, against your best mates, and as I said before, it was dog eat dog. There was the odd fight, but after the game was finished, it was we'd run down to the river for a swim, and with these days, it's the same. At home, it's the same. It's dog eat dog. When you're playing club cricket or state cricket, but after the game's over, you enjoy a beer together.
What a lovely picture you paint there, playing cricket in the road or the street or in the park, and then going down the river for a swim. I love it.
Yeah, well, Wallandilly River it was called, just near where I lived, and we'd play a couple of innings. It was the mate's backyard across the road. It had a half-acre block with no fences in it, so it was a big backyard. Play a couple of innings, in the 40-degree heat, and then run down to the river for a swim for a couple of hours, then come back and play a few more innings.
It's a lovely picture. And just final question from me, so related to that. you come from that. I know you played cricket in the sort of 80s, like me, and obviously cricket has changed massively in the last 20 years. And now you're coaching in the 100, the sort of shortest format that we play currently. And you haven't done too much sort of test match coaching for a while. What do you worry about test cricket? Do you worry about its future?
Not really, because look, at the moment there is still enough of the players. All the players that play, they all think that test cricket is the pinnacle. So as long as the players think that's the pinnacle and want to play test cricket, well, I think there's a future in it. I think with the advent of obviously T20 cricket and the 100, as long as, obviously there's a lot of sponsorship dollars in those shorter form tournaments, rather than maybe more so than the tests and the one days these days. But as long as those competitions are used as a vehicle to for test cricket to survive, well, then that's the way it should be. The test cricket's had such a long history; it'd be a shame for for it to ever stop.
Okay, well, and you feel, do you? You're coaching London Spirit. Obviously, you don't spend all day with the players or anything, but even the younger players that you're working with still aspire. You sense still aspire to Test cricket, do they?
Oh, the big majority of them. Look, there's the odd player around that, their style of game suits the shorter form, and they probably know within that it doesn't suit the Test match cricket. Although if the way Stokes' team's playing at the moment, who knows that some of those players in years to come, or the style of player might migrate to Test cricket. But I think the majority of the players still see Test cricket as the pinnacle. Definitely.
Would you like to coach Test cricket again?
To be honest, no. I've had enough of that. The 4 years I had with England was, it was full on doing all three forms of the game. I think I had one short series against West Indies in the West Indies, 3 ODIs. I think I had those 3 matches off, and that was the only break I got. Look, it took me, once I went home, it took me 12 months. I didn't do anything for 12 months. It sort of took me 12 months to sort of come around to, no, I still want to be involved in this game. So I can't see myself doing another full 12-month of the year job. I'll that sort of stage of life, I'll try and do 2 or 3 of the franchise competitions around the world and see how much longer I can go for, and take each year as it comes.
Okay, nice way to look at it. Okay, well, look, that's great. We've got a few questions from the floor, as it were. So if you don't mind answering 1 or 2 of those, we've got some mad keen cricket fans on our doorstep. So, Norts, shall I hand to you for a bit?
Well, no, I'm going to pig Wiggo on first.
Okay.
Simon, good evening. Great to see the trailer of the film at last. And Trevor, great to have you with us. Can I sneak in 2 questions, perhaps, quickly?
Sure.
Trevor, who was your role model as a coach, whether in cricket or elsewhere? And when you arrived in England, what was the quality, if you had to sort of name one thing that the white ball team was missing?
Yeah, right. Well, as a role model, I didn't really have some junior coaches at home, which obviously no one would sort of know their names here, that weren't, I come from a country area in New South Wales and Sydney, about 2.25 hours southwest of Sydney. So, club coaches, a club coach down there. My father was my first coach, so we did a lot of work in the, batting and bowling in the driveway. But look, when I moved to Sydney and started to play some first class cricket, Bob Simpson was my first coach, and then Steve Rickson, was also in the late 80s, early 90s. And I suppose those couple of guys were hard taskmasters, but they also knew a lot about the game. I've never been one of those guys that sort of has necessarily taken a lot of notice of coaches from other sports. It's I'm certainly not against that, but I've sort of stuck to the cricket and stuck to the way I do things. But certainly, I think over a long period of time, I was lucky enough to play with a lot of Australia's great players at New South Wales cricket. I think from a coach's point of view, you learn a lot off a couple of experienced coaches like that, Bob Simpson and Steve Rickson. But along the way, you've got to do things your own way, and sometimes you learn what not to do as well, or that you would do things a little differently.
Sure.
So that's the way I've approached it. When I came to England, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I obviously knew how they'd gone in the 2015 World Cup, and the Morgs and Straussy, and they knew they had to change the way they played. They wanted to play, a more aggressive, different style of cricket than they probably got left behind a little bit over the previous few years. So, I was the lucky one that Straussy picked in, to help them achieve that. But I think it was just more about picking players in the team that could actually play in that manner, rather than in the style of a few years before, which was fine a few years before, but a lot of the teams had moved on. So we had to pick players in the team that were good at that style of cricket.
Well, thank you, and thanks for all you've done for England, Trevor.
No problem, thank you.
Who's next?
Right, next up, we're bringing in James. I think we're bringing James.
Evening, everyone, and thanks, Trevor, for joining us. I'm interested in your thoughts, Trevor, on kind of where the limit is for one-day teams and 2020 teams. Obviously, England have very nearly got to 500. The 2020 now sort of 240, 250 is about as high as we've seen. Where do you think the sort of the limit is for for a 50-over game? Do you think we'll see 500, 550 in the next few years? Do you think that's the way it's going, or do you think is that so difficult that it's not going to happen?
Well, I can certainly see 500 being scored. I mean, the boys weren't too far off it at Trent Bridge against Australia there a few years ago, and in fact, I think we didn't hit a boundary in the last 4 overs of that 50 overs. So, look, everything would have to go obviously perfectly, and the guys would have to play T20 cricket for 50 overs basically, and have a really good day. I think it might start to be a little bit like the 100-meter sprint record. That a few years ago, the record might have been beaten at by half a second, where now it's getting down into the hundredths and the thousandths of a second. I think the jumps will be even smaller. But I think, look, it also gets down to the type of wickets you're playing on as well. We found during the 4 years playing here in England that the wickets were extremely flat, and which aided the way we wanted to play the game. But they did, they weren't the same during the World Cup. So we had to play smart cricket. It was what we spoke about a lot, was yes, being positive and aggressive, but having to play smart cricket and learn to play smart cricket when it was appropriate. And I think we saw that in the final when we were under pressure, and the wicket was a little different to what we were used to, but we got the job done in the end.
Great, thank you.
They got close to 500 against Holland, didn't they? I think it was 2 off or something. 498.
Strap yourselves in. It's Paul who's probably got. How long do your questions like, Paul?
I'll try and keep it brief, Notes. I'll try. I was going to ask about the Edgbaston changing room thing, but obviously Simon's already done that. Thanks, Trevor, for being with us. Question is around building those relationships from coach to player. You mentioned obviously when you came into England about the rapport building with Morgs and Stokesy and so on and so forth, and getting to know the players and obviously what makes them tick. Which I guess when you're working full time like you were with England, that process is a lot easier than perhaps where you are now, where you're jumping from franchise to franchise, as you said, and doing 2 or 3 short stints per year. So it's really just how do you go about building that rapport and getting to understand the players in such a comparatively short space of time when you're just moving from franchise to franchise.
Here again, look, it's a bit hard to explain. It's a bit hard to actually for me to explain how it works or how I do things. But I go in and I try to be myself. I try to try to make it a little lighthearted, if you like, to begin with. Yes, we want to play with that smile on our face, so that cracking a few jokes and mucking around with the guys at different times, but when we get to the practice field and we're talking about the game, that that we're serious, that we're focused on what we do, so that when you do need to maybe have a little bit of a quiet word to 1 or 2 guys, or the way we've played, that they do listen, and I think they respect that. Whilst we're trying to enjoy the game and play with a smile on the face, that when we need to be, we can be extremely focused. And I think just getting to know the guys like that, it seems to be a fairly easy transition. These days, when you do the franchises, and I was lucky enough to do a few of the franchises before I came to England, is that you do know a lot of the players, even from the other teams, even though you may not have coached them. You're spending a bit of time walking past guys or saying hello in hotels and shaking hands after the game. It's a bit like a big travelling circus. So it's a little bit. It was a little bit of a head start. Although when I came to England, the only one I knew was Morgs. We were both at Kolkata Knight Riders together, in the previous few years. So, whether I'm sure some of the players probably asking Morgs, or any new coach comes in. I think the players would be trying to find out what sort of a person, what sort of a bloke the new coach is. So, I might have been lucky that that Morgs and I got on well. So, but it just seems a fairly easy transition, to be honest. So, I'll stick to my processes.
Seems to work. Cool. Thank you very much, Trevor.
Is it about sort of you're good, I reckon, at identifying character? Sort of picking up, like with your story about Stokes, for instance, and on the golf course, and Jason Roy, and that you can sort of detect certain characteristics in players which you think are going to be good, and certain characteristics which may just slightly hamper things, and you've got natural techniques for either enhancing or diminishing those traits.
That's probably the best description of it I've heard, Simon. So, I suppose. Look, I'm a cricket coach. I'd like to think I'm a good observer. As I said before, I played with a lot of some of the world's great players. The Wars and Mark Taylor, Jeff Lawson, Greg Matthews, guys like that. So one of my other philosophies is that the best coaches are the other 10 players in the team. So if you're observing what they're doing, if you're watching what they do, how they play particular shots, how they prepare for matches, if you're watching all of that, that's at the top level. Once you've already learnt your technique and whatever at a younger age, I think you learn more from your peers than you do from a coach trying to tell you how to actually play. Yes, a coach can work with a player and make a few small adjustments, or remind them what their technique was like when they were scoring runs, that type of thing. But pretty much by the time someone gets to 17 or 18, they've got 98, 90%, 99% of the technique they're going to have for the rest of their life. So make better use of the technique you've already got, and you'll take more wickets and score more runs.
Do you take notes? Do you write notes down? No, it's all in there, is it? It's all in the noddle. Yeah,
I've never written a note during a match yet. I still wonder what some of the guys write down. I think some of the guys just score so they can go back and have a look. But I've never. Everyone to their own. That's the way some guys operate, and it's successful for them. To me, it's something I've never done. But to me, it's about, I think, probably reading the game. What I want the players to do is actually learn to read the game. Play the game. I think read the game. What's happening in the game at this particular time? How can I make a contribution in this situation? If it's tough or if it's easy, or as I said, if from a player's point of view, if you can make better use of the technique you've got in those conditions, you'll score more runs and take more wickets.
Now we've got 2 more questions here, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to bring, you'll like this. We're going to bring in a fellow Aussie.
Evening, Trevor. Thanks for coming on. Hi, Simon. Hi, everyone.
Hi, sir.
No problem.
First one's easy. Who wins the Ashes next year? But more importantly, how do you see Australian cricket at the moment, both on and off the field? We're doing okay on the field without sort of blowing anyone away since the Ashes, and then off the field with Tim Payne, Langer, a few other things, doesn't seem to be that cohesive. So where do you think we're at?
Well, first of all, the Ashes next year, I think if England are playing that positive brand of cricket and they're playing it well, it'll be one hell of a series to watch. It'll be, look, I'm a cricket fan. I want to see a good contest. Even when I was coach, I said to some of the journalists, I'm a cricket tragic, I suppose, to begin with. I want to see a good game of cricket, and hopefully whoever I'm coaching, just comes out on top. So next year, I think it'll be a great watch, especially if, as I said, if England can keep playing in this manner and doing it well. It'll be one hell of a tournament to watch, or one series to watch. Australian cricket at the moment. Look, the one thing that'll be interesting to see is probably between now and the next 3 or 4 years, when the 6 or 7 guys that have been there for 10 years sort of start to disappear. Have we got the depth to actually replace those players at that level, that level of play? That'll be the question mark, I suppose, that those players will have to answer, and we won't know until they actually get their opportunity. But there's over the years in Australia, there's always been someone that'll step up to the mark. But we've had some very good players, obviously, there at the moment, that may not be there in 3, 4, 5 years' time. So that'll be a tough transition, maybe possibly for the Australian team going forward. But I think just over the next at least couple of years, those guys will still be there, and still performing pretty well. So they'll be hard to beat. What was it? What was the last piece of that question?
Oh, just off the field.
Oh, yeah. Look at. Look, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, not having been a part of it, I can't make comment on what's sort of going on behind the scenes. As I said, not being part of it, I honestly don't know. So, look, all I can say is which is take it or leave it. But my philosophy, I suppose, I've never been anywhere any more than about 4 years as a coach. I just think it's time to move on, whether you're doing well or not. After that 4 years, I don't want to become part of a problem. And I think sometimes when you're maybe there 1 or 2 years too many, that can start to be a problem. And I think every now and then, if a bit of a change is rejuvenates organisations. I thought Andrew McDonald was always going to be the coach. I thought they did pretty well. Under Justin, did a fantastic job after after the South African debacle there a few years ago. He got them back on track. And even in the last 12 months, they won the T20 World Cup and took the Ashes home again. So when they got rid of the coach, I couldn't see them getting rid of the assistant coach either. So, but Andrew McDonald's a good operator, a good fella. I'd expect their performances to keep being good.
Cheers, mate. He's a good Victorian too.
Yeah.
Andrew.
He's got a great track record, hasn't he? Actually, as a domestic coach.
Right, bring in last question.
Before we go to the last question, just as a little aside, Australian cricket generally. Just give us a bit of a lowdown, Trev, on I remember a couple of times being in Australia the last 10 years, and especially if you've lost the Ashes, which I know you haven't very often, but like in 2011, there was a lot of accusations of an obese society and too many sports to choose from for kids at school, like sort of 23 sports to choose from, including things like kite surfing and stuff. How is cricket perceived in Australia? I know there's also talk about the Big Bash becoming a little bit more condensed again and maybe going to private, eventually having private investment. So what is the kind of excitement around cricket in Australian society? Is it still, the number one summer sport? Do you still see kids who really want to play? Do you still see kids playing outside cricket, or are they moving on?
Look, I still think it's the number one sport in Australia. I don't think it's as popular as it once was. I mean, for example, as I said, I come from a country area, and when I played my club cricket with Penrith, which is in Western, right out west of Sydney. And when I first went to Penrith to play in the Sydney club grade competition, within Penrith itself, it had 13 grades of local cricket. I think there's 8 now. Junior cricket was very similar. It'd have some of the underage levels would have 2 divisions with 8 teams. These days there's usually 1 division with 6 or 8 teams. So it doesn't seem to be quite as many people playing it. But I think it's sort of changed. The way it was described to me was that once upon a time where the people would get outside and play a lot of backyard cricket, for example, and that still happens to a certain degree, but I don't think anywhere near as much as it used to. But the interest is online. The traffic they get looking up some of the scores and the articles online is huge. So there's still interest there, and I think there's still enough people playing it and interest. It's an interesting one. I suppose it's the same over here. Look, there's a lot of people are into their cricket, but there's also a lot of people that couldn't care 2 hoots about it. Well, it's the same in Australia as well. A lot of, when the summer comes around, there's always comments in the paper about, oh yeah, great, you got cricket on, buddy, all day long on the TV. But everyone to their own. Some people like all sports, some don't like sport at all. They like their arts and music and things like that. So everyone to their own. But I think there's still enough interest. The women's games is expanding, all over the world by the look of it. So that again just brings, a different demographic into the game. So I think it's still travelling okay. And Sam, you still there?
Oh, Sam's got. I'll bring in Rajiv in now. We're moving fast.
Right, what did you want to say to Sam?
Well, that Andrew McDonald is actually from New South Wales, but anyway.
Okay. He coached Victoria, though, didn't he?
Yeah. He was in the New South Wales under-17s.
You're claiming credit for him. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
No. The other states always claim credit for the other blokes, for the New South Wales guys.
Yeah. Good. Go on. Who we got now? Ben. What's happening?
We have Rajiv.
Yeah.
Oh, Rajiv. Hi, Rajiv.
Hi, Simon. Hi, everyone. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Hi, Trevor. Thanks very much for coming on tonight. I had quite a quick question. It's just to do with squad selection. Obviously, during your time looking after England, there was a separate selection committee, and then that changed when Chris Silverwood then became in charge. And then now, from what I can see, they're going to revert back to having a sort of selection committee. And I wanted to check, from your perspective, was your preference to be actually in control of squad selection as well? And that's why they changed during Chris Silverwood's time? Or, where did you stand really when it came to having separate selectors for the squad overall?
Look, I was a selector, but I was one of 4 or 5 selectors of the squad. I think, my point of view, I think that's the best way to go. There's a lot of 18 first-class counties here in England, and it's a bit hard for one guy, for example, to get around and know everyone that's playing. So look, I'm quite happy to have input from other people as well. I'm not from a coach's point of view, or selector's point of view, I'm not a dictator necessarily where I think I should get the team I want every single time. I don't know everything there is about to know about the game, and it's good to get the thoughts on different players in the game from a few different people. I thought it was unfortunate. Look, Spoons is a lovely bloke, but I just thought, being sort of the coach selector, if someone wasn't happy with their selection, or if they were made 12th man, for example, if someone wasn't happy, in a team or a squad situation, even though I was a selector, the chairman of selectors, for example, or the selectors in general, got the blame. Where I think with Chris, that was actually in the change room then. The one that could perceivably get the blame for someone not playing or being left out of a squad or something was actually in the change room, and that could be, I don't know, but that to me could be a little bit damaging to morale, I think, within the squad. So I'm unfortunate for Chris for that to happen, but I think going back to having a number of selectors is the way to go.
Right.
What do you think? Ranjiv?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with Trevor. I think particularly now, I think it's going to be really difficult with the one-day coach and the England test coach, and being in that situation where the one-day coach is going to want all the best players for the one-day team, and the test coach will want all the best players for the test team. So I think you need to have someone independent there making that decision, so it just doesn't fall on the coaches. So yeah, I think it is, certainly with the situation now where you've got 2 different coaches, I think you have to go down that route.
I think with the Australian team, with now Andrew's coach, the way they're doing it's sort of a little bit of a hybrid situation with him, is that he is the number one coach, and he's basically, he's full time, but they've got 2 or 3 assistants who will each take a series somewhere during the year, giving him, maybe 3 or 4 series off, so that he does get a break. Because as I was saying before, the 4 years I did, it was just it became very tiring. That's for sure, mentally more than physically. And so if you're able to get 3 or 4 series off a year, that would definitely help. They'll probably pick and choose which ones he does have off. So it'll be interesting to see, even from that point of view, which way is a success. I think both teams are probably giving it a trial anyway, and seeing how it goes.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see, won't we? Do you have a selection committee for London Spirit?
Yeah, it's Morgs and I.
Excellent. Well, you're doing well. So you're just off the bottom. You lost to Trent Rockets the other day, I know, but you're doing well generally. What should we look out for? Adam Rossington's created a bit of noise, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's a good striker of the ball. When he like anyone at the top of the order, you're trying to take advantage of the fielding restrictions early. So, the way he plays and the way we want him to play, that's not going to work every time, as we've seen. He's got 2 or 3 low scores, but as we saw up in Leeds, when it comes off, 66 in no time. He's he struck the ball as well as anyone I've seen. So long may that continue.
Bowlers are. Do you ever feel sorry for bowlers now?
It's almost getting to the point where you could set up a bowling machine and just not employ a bowler. But look, some of the skills of the bowlers are just unbelievable. And I think from our point of view at the Spirit, we've actually got a pretty good defensive bowling lineup that have done well. It's not going to work every time, as I said before, but in the first 4 games, I thought that was probably our strength, that we bowled well. We defended the boundaries, very well. The shorter form, there's not going to be very many balls that pitch middle hit the top of off. Most of the wickets that fall are from scoreboard pressure, where you're not allowing the batter to score runs, so the pressure builds up. He's trying to hit a big shot, and miscues it and misses one or hits one up in the air. So, it's not necessarily, as I said, hit middle, hit the top of off.
Yeah, Luke Wood looks a talent, doesn't he? Luke Wood looks a talent.
The Trent Rockets, he. He's not all that tall. He's skiddy. He looked like against us the other day. He bowled very well to the field he had set. Bowled some good Yorkers. A decent change up. Wasn't afraid to drop the bouncer in as well. So, he looked good.
Listen, we'll let you go. Thank you very much for your time today. I've got one final question, and that is, given the film we saw earlier, who's cutting your grass at the moment?
That'd be my wife. She likes getting on the mower as much as I do. I got to kick her off it.
And what would you say? You're such a kind of placid, you're a relaxed guy. You must have a bad habit. What does she say is your worst habit?
I have too many cups of tea and coffee during the day.
And you don't wash them up?
That's about right. Yeah, you got to wash it. You got to dry. What do you call it? A dishwasher for that.
But are you bad at loading the dishwasher then?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, she reckons when I'm not there, there's only one dirty cup during the day. When I'm there might be 5 or 6. I get a fresh one. I'll tell you, a fresh one every time.
If that's your worst habit, that's not too bad actually. That's good. Anyway, listen. As I say, thank you very much. Farby obviously sends his best wishes. I know you and he are like brothers, aren't you? Almost.
Yeah, well, I first met Farby in 2003, New South Wales Cricket and Kent County Club struck up a coach exchange, if you like. I came over to Kent for 7 weeks. It was about 4 weeks of the pre-season, 2003. and I think the first 3 games, just doing a little bit pre-season with them. And then Fabi wasn't with Kent at that stage, but I think he joined a year after. And when I took over New South Wales cricket in 2004-05, I think he came over, it might have been the second year I was doing, he came over as the exchange coach. And that was the first time I got to meet him. And then a year or 2 later, I got the Sri Lankan job, and they said to me, you can bring over an assistant coach. Well, we got on really well in that short space of time when he came over to Sydney. And it was just sort of a natural fit that I'd take someone you get on well with to a place that you're unfamiliar with, that you could spend a bit of time with. So, and that's how it started.
Yeah, good man. Well, well done for giving him the opportunity, actually, and obviously he's done very well. Okay, listen, thank you. So your next match is tomorrow, is it?
Tomorrow night against the Welsh Fires. So
at Lords.
At Lords, yes, yeah.
Oh, well,
that's 2 points for you then.
That's what I was going to say. They haven't been pulling up trees, have they? But in
this short form of the game, let me tell you, anyone can win. It just needs 1 or 2 guys from either team to have a good day, and they can win a match for you. So we're certainly not taking them lightly. The other way of looking at it is they're due for a win. So we've got to be on our. We've got to play some good cricket to win.
Got to be on your A game. Well, you're giving the MCC members and the Middlesex fans and all that some excellent entertainment. So thanks for that. It's given London a bit of, actually, it's given the north of London a little bit of bragging rights over Surrey, who are sort of always swaggering around that of late, and it's restored Middlesex's or the North London reputation. So well done for that. Hope it continues. Trevor, thank you very much. Hope we catch you somewhere, and just well done anyway with all your contributions to the game. Actually, wherever you've been, you've just made the game better, I think. So thank you very much, and have a good night. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Thanks, guys. Thank you.